Oh, what a mess this is. Let's sort this out. But before we do that, we need to understand what this thing actually is. Well, this thing makes me all of my processes. So logic, engineering, calculation, and then even way at the back, accumulation. And this thing has been running for absolutely ages. However, we can speed this up and make it a hell of a lot cleaner, so we don't have all these pipes going everywhere. However, if at any point during this video you do enjoy it, make sure to smash the like button. Consider subscribing because we are on the road to 1,000 subscribers and we're getting pretty close. So let's sort this mess out. How are we going to make this quicker, you may ask? Good question. We're going to be using the extended inscribers. Now, why are we going to use these extended inscribers? Well, we can run 4 jobs at once and we can put 4 acceleration cards in. Now, we could do this with the normal inscribers, but we can only do 1 job at a time. So instead of getting like maybe 2, 3 per second, we could get a potential 8 to 12 a second here. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing. And the way we get these is by using 3 capacitor cards, a normal inscriber, which I've gone and made all the stuff off camera, and the concurrent circuits as well. And we throw them in the crystal assembler and it will make us a load of extended inscribers. Now, I've never used these things before, so it's going to be a little bit of trial and error. So I'm going to grab everything we're going to need to do the logic circuits. So the gold ender chest so we can make some gold. We'll make some RF tool crafters because the ender IO crafters aren't particularly amazing. We'll also grab the circuit presses that we need as well. And at first I was using pipes. Now the last few episodes we're moving away from pipes because I think they just look messy. So I do replace this pipe with a modular router a little bit later on, and then we just do the normal pull from the ender chest, send it into the crafter with the crafting recipe of gold set up, and then send that straight into the inscriber using another modular router with a puller sender module, only pulling out gold ingots. And this worked to a degree. We were getting the logic circuit boards. However, with it having 4 jobs, there's no way you can like lock each of the jobs so only certain items can go into those slots. So if we go over to the next job, once it gets a stack in that first job, when we go over to the next job, that will then start filling up. And I thought I could counteract this by putting in the silicone press circuit in first, setting up all the silicone press stuff, and then still we were having an issue because then once the second job filled up, it was then going into the third job, and then it would go into the 4th job. So attempt number 1 was a fail. And the second attempt I kind of made off camera because I thought this might take a while. And my second attempt was to take some of the load off some of the routers by adding in a couple of extra routers and even some drawers instead of like sending multiple items through one modular router. We'll send it from, say, the crafter to the drawers, and then from another modular router take it out of the drawers and send it into the inscriber, just so it's not backing up on the previous modular router, because obviously it's only got 1 slot and we might need that to transport some other items about. And I also combined it into 3 different extended inscribers as well. 1 for the actual circuit boards themselves, 1 for the silicone presses, and 1 to actually make the processors themselves. So we had 4 jobs running on 1 of the 3 items, which I thought might speed up the job a little bit quicker. We might be able to send even more round and get the boards and processors and stuff quicker than before, which is all well and good, but it did get a little confusing on what routers were taking what and things like that, and did end up getting lost, I'm not gonna lie to you. And it was even getting to the point where the crafters were kind of backing up and we weren't able to shift the stuff quick enough, so I had to add extra crafters for just stuff like the silicone and the redstone, so they all have their separate ones. I think that's the way I'm going to do it from now on, is each of the things that are needed. So the diamonds, Certis quartz, things like that, they'll have their own crafter. By the time I'd put the ender chest down, thinking I was about done with this setup, we had 7 modular routers on the go. So 1 each for the redstone, gold, and the silicon balls. And then we had 4 other routers just sending those items from the crafters to the drawers, and then from the drawers to the inscribers, and then from the inscribers to the ender chest, sending it back to our ME system. However, things were still getting a little bit backed up. So I thought, because there's so many processors and different modules in some of these modular routers, I need to then divide up even more. So I added another 2 modular routers, and this seemed to be okay, transporting some of the, most of the items. However, we were still getting a little bit stuck on when we were putting different items into the inscribers. We had all the items getting sent from the crafters to the drawers. Perfect. It was brilliant, working fine. It was just transporting from the drawers to the inscribers that was the issue. And there were so many different modules in this one router. So I thought, is there a way that we could potentially divide this up even more? And turns out there is a module in modular routers called the distributor. And I've never used it before, but I thought we'll give it a go. And the way these distributors work is you have to highlight all the drawers that you want to take items from. So in this case, the redstone, the circuit boards, and the silicon presses. And we'll know when it's taking in those items because the arrows change from going out to going in, creating like a plus sign. And then we make another distributor to actually distribute it to the inscribers. And what that does is basically just kind of like evenly distributes it. So it might go from like a stack of redstone to a stack of processors to a stack of silicone presses and then back to the redstone and things like that. Just keeps it going. And then once that had done that and that was finished, we knew that we had some processors in the inscribers. We could then tell that modular router to take those processors out and then send them into the ender chest, which should then send it into our main system. So that's the logic processes done. However, we've still got calculation, engineering, accumulation, and concurrent to do. And I've already brought over all of the ender chests and set the modular routers up to all the crafters that they need to go to. So the only thing that's left to do is set up the other modular routers, sending it to the drawers and then to the specific inscribers. Now, I will be doing that off camera because it will most likely get a little bit confusing and I don't want the video to be too messy because I already know that it's very confusing as it is. So once I've done that, I'll come back and explain as best as I can and hopefully it's not too bad. Okay, I'm going to do this bit live with you. So this isn't a voiceover. This is actually me playing and speaking at the same time. So I've done it. I've managed to do it. I've labeled them so I wasn't getting confused as I was doing it. So this is the calculation processors. This is the engineering processors. This is the accumulation processors. And this is the concurrent processors. Last time you saw me, I had these 6 done with a couple of these linked up and just a couple of these, which will be these 3 all linked up, go into the drawers, and then from the drawers back into the modular router, and then going back into one of these inscribers at the bottom. Basically, I managed to do all of that now. So all of these chests are linked to this one of these modular routers, which is then getting sent to this crafter, which it might be making Entro, Flux, Sky Steel, Diamonds, Certis Quartz, anything like that. It's then getting pulled out from one of these and then getting sent straight into these drawers. That ingot is then getting pulled out. So for logic, it's going to be gold. It's going to get pulled out, go straight into here, which is then gets pressed down and then gets taken out by a modular router and then thrown back in here, which is then getting picked up by something else and getting thrown into this one, which is combining it all to make the processors. It'll be the exact same process with the printed silicone and every other sort of circuit board that we need And then once that's done, it then gets crushed together and then made into your boards. However, I managed to condense this down. I know it doesn't look like I've condensed it down a lot, but I managed to condense at least this process here with the 3 different materials. I managed to compress it down into just one singular modular router. Right here, this distributor, I'll show you dead quick, is actually linked to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different drawers. It then splits into 3 different distributors, and they are getting split into redstone, printed circuit, but printed concurrent circuit, and printed silicon. This one will be getting printed engineering circuits, printed silicon, redstone dust, and this one will be calculation circuits, silicon, and redstone dust. And this will then distribute it roughly evenly in wherever it needs to go. So calculation one will go in here as well, with the engineering one there, and then the concurrent one there. Now, I could probably condense this down even more by just throwing the exact same things for the logic presser and the accumulation. However, I might do that in my own time. Now, one thing I want to say with this is not every single processor, and don't worry, these signs will not be staying. They are going to go. In fact, they can go right now. They are not needed. Perfect. These aren't all of them. If we go over and type in processors, there are 2 that we haven't and cannot get because we haven't automated them, because they require a little bit more thinking about. We won't be doing those today, unfortunately. One is the quantum processor. Again, looks pretty simple here, but it's once you get into the making of the quantum alloy, because you need the reaction chamber and stuff. Now, we're getting singularities, so that's not an issue. What we're not getting is the shattered singularity and the quantum infusion liquid. We're not getting this at the minute. And the other one we're not getting is the energy processor as well, because this also requires some charged redstone crystals, which is 64 redstone crystals and water. Sounds pretty easy, but when you go into this, it's not actually as easy as you think. It just more stuff that needs automating, which will be on this side. This is like the reaction chamber side, if you will. But this was like the main bit I wanted to do in today's episode. However, don't worry, we've got other things planned. This isn't going to be it for today, because I want to start using this system as soon as possible. So that means getting our wireless connector stuff so we can use it wirelessly hooked up today. There's going to be requesters hooked up today. In fact, there's going to be even more requesters, which I'm going to start setting up soon. And there might be a few other little processes and even some more recipes added to the assembler matrix. I've already added a few today. Just dead quick, you may have noticed there's a hell of a lot of more blue lights and green lights and things like that. That's because I've only gone and linked up every single room here. So that's all the overworld stuff, the end stuff, the nether stuff, and the productive trees stuff. That took so long to do, but it is now done, so that is brilliant. So if we really wanted to, and we wanted to access some teak, we have the 50,000 logs there, 25,000 leaves, and even 1,200 saplings. Same with rose bushes. We've got 235. I need to chunk load the other areas to get even more of these things. But yes, it's all done. Don't worry. And we actually have a fair amount of 256 item storage parts as well. That's it for the live section anyway. We're going to go back to pre-recorded and me voice-overing things. So let's get on with adding the requesters and wirelessly relinking this system up. And the first thing on my hit list was the requesters. So we headed on back to the Japanese base, stole the requesters from the previous system. Now, I didn't know if these were going to remember what they had inside of them, but either way, 2 of these isn't going to be enough, because they don't hold many requests at one time anyway. So it was quickly make a couple more. And it was as I was trying to create these, we had to do quite a bit of hopping between the 2 systems, and it was getting kind of annoying. So I made the requesters that I could and wanted to try and automate the requesters with the auto crafting, so I didn't have to do it myself. But of course, we're going to have to sort out the previous system as well, so we're going to have to take out all of the items and sort out some that might want to go into some mega bulk storages, and then all the rest can just go into normal storage and stuff like that. So let's go and do that. So now that the old system is completely clear, which took a very long time, and it's all been sorted out into bulk storages, I'd even gone as far as to use the ME chest and sort each individual 256 mega storage shell as well into any items I think we might get mass amounts of, so they have a bulk storage as well, just to clean the system up a little bit. So we now have nearly 3 pillars full of just drives, which is mental. So the only thing left to do now is to grab the ME wireless access port from our old system and hook it up to the new system, making sure that our wireless terminal is connected, and putting the dimension card back in as well so we can access it anywhere in the world. And just like that, we have access to the new system. Now, before we make the requesters, I'm going to go ahead and make all the terminals that we require. For example, a backup crafting terminal, just so if for whatever reason our wireless one isn't working, we can go to the crafting terminal within the crafting room, if you will, pattern terminal, so we can craft patterns, and we can set up automated auto crafting processes, and the requester terminal as well, so we can access all the requesters from one place. The next thing I'm going to do is then link all of this up to the main system. The way we're going to do this is with some pink cables and a P2P tunnel, which is linked to the big brain system outside underneath the deck. And once these were ready, we could then set up the crafting recipe using our pattern terminal, and we could set up the recipe for the requester. And then we could simply just request the requester, if you will. And then we could sort of fill in around the terminals that we'd put in, because the idea was the terminals to go in the middle of the requesters, which is then surrounding the terminals. I thought this would look pretty cool. And then once that was done, it was then just simply throw in some extra requestable recipes, so like diamonds, emeralds, and we could set a minimum amount on these, and I wanted about 100,000. So if we ever dip below that 100,000, it will craft as many as it needs to go back up to that 100,000. So if we use 50,000, it will automatically craft 50,000 extra diamonds for us. So we always have diamonds at our disposal. I can do this with some other things as well, so like the speed upgrades and the stack upgrades for modular routers. I won't probably go into like 100,000 with those. I'll probably just do like 1,000. We should never need any more than that. If it ever drops below that, it'll just bring it back up. So we should never really ever run out of that. If anything, we could go even lower to about 100, but I will just leave it at 1,000 in case we ever do a big job with modular routers. And then any other things that I'll add will be off-camera stuff that we can just add at our leisure. However, some of the requesting recipes might need extra crafting patterns for like ender pearls, slime, stuff like that. So we quickly made those, threw them into the matrix assembler, and those recipes were crafting. This was the case for the sender and puller modules as well, so it was just pretty easy stuff to figure out. Once we had done that, this thing was all set up and ready to go. Done. So that's going to be the end of today's episode. So thank you all for watching. If you have enjoyed it, make sure to smash the like button. Consider subscribing if you are new. And off camera, I'll do some work hooking up the mob farm and stuff to the new system and some other requester bits and pieces. And I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.